Yeah.
Hopefully they don't change anything with reserve list stuff, because I'm in that category where I've gotten all my reserve list things that I want. So don't touch it, Wizards. But
In the words of Cam, abolish the fucking reserve list.
all right, so let's move on then. So we got either our predictions or the new sets that are coming out. And they're kind of tied in together in a way, but one was more specifically for cEDH, and then the other is just like what we're thinking these sets are going to be. So which would you rather start with there?
I think we've been talking about sets. Let's do the break. Let's do predictions. I
Okay.
guess.
Okay. So where do you want to start with the predictions on this?
I don't know. What do you think happens with, I guess, the brackets and stuff, or the buckets, or the bowls, or whatever they call it? Which
here's what my like genuine thought is on this. I think that when they made that announcement and then they said that they were going to try and have it figured out by Vegas.
Yeah.
And here we are, January.
Yeah.
Wasn't Vegas was like what, September, October?
September, I believe.
Okay. So here we are. We're at January of the new year.
Yeah.
And they have not figured it out. Granted, they have a ton of cards to go through. I think that they got into it and they went, this is too much shit.
Yeah.
And so I think they're probably working on a new system, which is also why they didn't release any Commander or EDH announcements with the most recent bans for all the other formats. What are your thoughts on that?
I was going to actually bring up the fact that they said they were going to have it done by Vegas, and I agree with you. I think that that is a very big ask from a group of people to try and lump every card into a different power level, because even bad cards can become great cards in the right decks and in the right situations. So I get it. Like, I don't know. I forgot who I was talking to about this, but honestly, even if you just gave instead of, I don't know how to say that. Like, when people said, okay, you're playing a whatever deck, you're playing all your deck is bracket 1, but then you play this one bracket 4 card, and then everybody goes, well, you're a bracket 4 deck. I said from the beginning, I thought what they should do is they should lump everything together and say, okay, these cards are power level, we'll say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever, and then you just take the total, like add all of the numbers up for your deck, divide it by 100. That's the power level of your deck. And so then you can actually get a good look and be like, oh, I'm operating at a 2.3. And then this guy goes, okay, I'm operating at a 3.6. Probably a huge gap.
Yeah.
Because you're playing a lot of cards to get yourself to a 3.6. But if this guy goes, I'm a 2.3, and this guy goes, I'm a 2.5, you're probably safe.
Right.
You know what I mean? And then that also allows you to use the actual rankings, because, where everybody's like, I'm a 7. It gives you a definitive number where you can be like, yeah, I've added my deck up, I'm this. Because I just don't think that you take a bunch of 1s and then you throw in a Dranith and all of a sudden your deck's a 4.
Right.
Like, I don't know.
Now, maybe let me branch off of that for a second and see what your thoughts are on this, because I was thinking about this the other day. I think, and I don't play Warhammer at all. I have no interest in getting in that hobby because it is a lot more money than I want to invest in it. But I think that with their tournaments, it is based on a point system where your army can only be up to X amount of points.
Yes, and then each individual like warrior piece, whatever, adds up.
Yes.
Like, it costs a certain number of points.
So what if rather than like maybe dividing it out might be like something like for like a casual table things,
Yeah.
but like what if rather than thinking of like the brackets or things like that, they do what you're saying and they assign a point value to certain cards 1 through 5,
Mhm.
right? And then they can do tournaments like 100-point tournament, 200, 300,
Ah,
400, 500, unlimited.
yeah.
Unlimited being like what cEDH
cEDH.
and TEDH would probably be,
Yeah.
and then like 500 being the highest extent of whatever high power would be,
Yeah.
and so on and so on, and being able to do tournament structures based on that.
I think that'd be a good idea, actually. I think that makes a lot of sense. Well, and even too, like you could technically lump certain lands into categories like that, where people would be like, "Oh, well, lands would just be zero." But I mean, I think there's a clear difference between a tapped land and
Basic is maybe basics are no points.
maybe. Well, I mean, even then, I think you could just consider a basic like a one, and then you consider stuff like your
Underground
fetches and
seas
shocks
and
and stuff like that closer to like a 4 or a 5 or wherever, because I mean you're really color fixing at that point, and then
right.
just somewhere in there, like I mean it still to me would make a difference because if you're running a deck full of all the best lands, then that's going to make a huge difference.
Right.
you know
And I think, and I agree with that. I think you can kind of scale those points to just any different card type. And
yeah.
I think if they were to do something like that, it adds a lot of variety and
Hmm.
also takes out some of that piece of like, oh well, person going in with the most expensive cards is going to be the person that wins. No, that's not true, because if say, I don't know, like a say on certain cards like a mox diamond, or something that, or a lion's eye diamond is considered like, even above like the 5 point. Well, you could pretty much only run those in
The unlimited.
the unlimited series.
Hmm.
And you might even be able to do pseudo ban list for some of the lower end of it as well, like the 100 point, 200 points.
Hmm.
But you're not going to see someone trying to go into 100 point one, and then
Hmm.
oh, here's all the duels and all the rocks and
Yeah.
things like that. So
Well,
um
and I don't know how much you've played actual like casual Commander, but I mean, I've had games where I've built decks that just pop off and go bananas one turn or one game, and then the next time you play it, it does nothing, and it's just because you had like pretty much one of the best possible hands that the deck could have got. Like I've won one time with a it was the ancient one that won the god
yeah.
creature that came out, and I was playing it, and I managed to mill through my whole deck and then draw my last card while I had like a Jace or no Labman out.
Okay.
I don't know. I said Jace Labman out, and then I won the game because like I milled out the majority of my deck, got Labman down, and then I had um, the Jin Cataxis that draws you 7 at the end step,
Hmm.
but I only had 6 cards in my deck. I won, so it's
Yeah.
like okay, boom. But at the same time, just because you have these like win conditions in your deck, the thing that makes cEDH so the reason we run these specific win conditions is because we know that we can try and get to them as much as possible because we're drawing a ton of cards, we got a ton of tutors, and we're trying
Right.
to get to these win conditions as quickly and efficiently as possible.
Right.
And when it doesn't matter if I just put Thassa's Oracle, Demonic Consultation into my deck. Like, yes, if I put it into a casual deck and then everything else is just whatever, I throw both of those into
Right.
like the Amanatu precon that came out. It's like that's fantastic, but I'm probably only ever gonna see them together like once in a blue moon.
Right.
So you know what I mean. So I think that still that stuff kind of is relevant, like adding
Yeah,
up the total
like
value.
definitely as you go up the power scale,
Yeah.
like your highest end decks are always going to be the most consistent.
Hmm.
And exactly like you're saying there, you can put those powerful cards in casual decks if you really want to, or if the table allows it
Hmm.
for those kind of
Hmm.
combos. Like we have people in our community that are playing like a budget, or at least at one point we're playing like budget Yuriko and
Hmm.
still running the Thossas combo in it.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean they had all the other pieces to be able to be like, oh, I'm going to fire off a couple of tutors and like, oh, I'm going to have this, not only do I have this tutor, but I also have like 2 or 3 like top deck manipulation
Mhm.
things, like in Yuriko specifically, to make sure I'm getting this combo
Mhm.
out by turn 2,
Well,
right? So yeah, I think the consistency
mhm.
part of things is the kind of key
Yeah.
there.
Well, and you could even say that, okay, for instance, we have we're going to call this like a power level, or like you said, a 200 point tournament or whatever. So you can run cards that are above that, but you could say like, okay, we run like 200 and below or whatever, like 2 point cards and below for our casual group, or 3 point cards and below. Or if you want to say, hey, we keep our decks 300 points or below, well then that's perfect. But then like you could probably add a stipulation to that where it's like, okay, the commander, like if you're running a 300 point and below tournament, the commander has to be like that point, I guess, like a 3 point or below commander. It can't be a
Mhm.
4 point commander in a 300 point deck because, again, like things like Magda, great card. It ends up breaking stuff and I mean, every card in that deck is kind of one of the, like, it's not really broken. It's just Magda kind of breaks them.
Right.
So you could kind of look at it that way. It's like, okay, well, Magda is a 4 or 5 level commander, so 5. But we're wanting to run our games at a three and below, or 300 point below. So then you have to pick commanders that are 3 and below, and they kind of fall into that category, and then you just go from there.
Right.
Which, again, this is way more complicated than it needs to be, but just an idea.
Right. And that's what I'm saying. I feel like and we obviously these are predictions. We could be wrong, but I think given the time frame that we've had so far with them saying they were going to make an announcement here, didn't happen. Didn't
Mhm.
happen for a couple more months. We just had this, recent ban in the other formats, but no EDH
Yeah.
mention whatsoever. I think one, they're probably trying to take their time with it, but two, I kind of think that they made this announcement on the bracket portion of things kind of preemptively.
Yeah.
And I mean, who knows? They could announce next week that they're going to have brackets,
Yeah.
or, a couple weeks from now, whatever, based on the time of this recording. But like, I felt like they kind of got into it and they're just like, maybe let's try something a little different. And I think that, whether, obviously, I don't think anyone at Wizards is going to watch this video and go, oh, that's a good fucking idea. Let's do that
Yeah.
instead. But it'd be interesting if they did do something like that, or at least had more input than, especially at a cEDH level,
Yeah.
than what they do now
Yeah.
to try to fix some of those things.
Do you want to kind of jump into the do you want to jump into the band predictions and stuff too, or do you want to go sets? What would you rather do?
Well, we could stick with the just the cEDH bans, unbans, and we have the meta here too.
Oh yeah.
Um, kind of like I said, I don't know if I said it earlier when we were talking, like before the recording and whatnot, but like bans and unban wise, I think they're probably gonna stick with not touching that right now.
Yeah.
And again, kind of going back to that point I just said, if it's taking them this long to try to figure things out, they're probably focused on figuring that out as opposed to doing the bans and the unbans right away.
Yeah.
They probably also don't want another just fallout of things to happen
Yeah.
compared to what happened last year.
Yeah.
So I don't think there's going to be movement one way or another. I think that it will be whenever they are designing new cards now, they're going to keep that in mind.
Hmm.
And then probably next year is whenever we start to see more things either coming off or being added
So
to
you're
that
saying
list.
2026?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, that's a crazy prediction.
I
Yeah.
think they're going to let us sit in this meta for a little bit,
Really.
especially if right now the focus is on casual
Hmm.
EDH, because they aren't as focused on the cEDH, and while they might be able to take some things into consideration
Hmm.
for cEDH, I don't think they're going to touch the bans and
Mhm.
unbans for that. I think that power creep and power level wise now, like there's probably some decks that could handle more of the Flash Hulk stuff if we ended up going back to that kind of meta.
Yeah.
TNT is already kind of at the top. Unban Flash. I don't know how much that does for it because there's probably better strategies now
Yeah.
for the deck. So, um, I don't think they will unban some of the things that they just banned last year. Probably to make a point and address like, hey, you're not going to say and do things to people and
Yeah.
and feel like you can get away with it.
Yeah.
So if they do unban anything from that list, I do think it might be Jeweled Lotus,
Okay.
and that's it. But I don't think it's going to happen this year.
See, oh, go ahead.
No, aside from that, I can't really think of anything.
Really? So I actually think that we'll get a couple unbans by like the summer.
Really?
Yeah, I think that just because we do have reps now that are cEDH people, and I mean, because who do we get? We got Lua, we got Hire, and who else was it that
I think there are a couple not as well known people.
Yeah, but we did get a few people that are actually on the committee that are taking things into consideration. I also think that with us starting to have some of the top deck tournaments kind of backing off, because I mean, remember there's like they're hosting less tournaments this year too with everything that was going on, and also they've just been talking about like the player participation in cEDH kind of dropping off a little bit. I think that they're going to want to start to make a change to try and get people encouraged to like get back into the gameplay.
Yeah.
So I think that they'll probably do some sort of unban. I don't think anything else will get banned, but I do think they will unban some stuff, and you'll start to see some of the people that kind of bounced start to kind of make their way back in, like every Keurig pilot.
Yeah. I think that brings up a really good point on like, kind of something we were talking about earlier today on of the proxies. So not necessarily like, now that Wizards has control over it, typically with their constructed sanctioned formats, it's no proxies. It's kind of hard for this format to really thrive and survive without it.
Yeah.
And that's something I've had to come to terms with.
Yeah.
I may not run it, but if I want to play at higher end events, I'm going to expect it.
Yeah.
And sometimes that is the only way for players to be able to get out and play and even put out content.
Yeah.
For that matter, is people that are passionate about the game, but financially either they have other responsibilities, aren't able to do it, life happens,
Oh yeah,
so on, so on. So I think Wizards is going to have to kind of bite the bullet on this one and go, okay, we might have to allow something here. Might not be, a full deck, but even 10, 15 cards,
Yeah. Well, and the thing for me, man, I know this sounds crazy, but at the end of the day, even like if I wanted to play Monopoly, but I don't want to go buy Monopoly, I can draw on a piece of paper and get, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like you don't have to go get the specific stuff. The thing about it though is that it's nice to have those cards. It's nice to have that stuff, but it's not necessary to play the game. Like if I just wanted to write out on a bunch of pieces of paper and slide them into sleeves, I mean, you can do that. You're not stealing artwork. You're not doing it. I mean, you're just playing the game. Now, I don't think it should get to that point, but I do think that at the end of the day, and this is just my own take on things, it seemed crazy for a business to say, I don't want your money. Because when would I be more likely to buy something? Would I, if I walked into Sam's and I go and I'm walking down the freezer aisle and I see some new fruity ice cream treat thing and I go, man, that looks really good. And then Sam's Club looks at you and they go, either buy it or go somewhere else. And you're like, okay, I'll go somewhere else. But if the little lady sitting there at the little stand's like, hey, you want to try a little sample of this? You try it. And then I take a bite of it and I go, man, I really like this thing. That's pretty good. And then they're like, oh yeah, yeah, like yeah, you should tell your friends about this thing. Here, like your
Yeah.
friend, is that your friend? Here, you can have a sample. Oh wow, that's really good. Hey friend, did you like that? Yeah, me too. And then you go buy the thing, and it's like you get people in with the free thing, just like any business. Like here's this free thing, and then people go, oh cool, I like the free thing. And then if they really, really like your free thing, they go, man, I really like that. I'm gonna buy something. Look at like even most of these YouTube channels, they have like a member section. They give you free content, but
Right.
people just like it so much that they're like, wow, I'll pay for some of the content. And it's kind of the same way. If you
Right.
get them into cEDH and you go, wow, I really like this. Like this is actually really fun. And they're not spending any money. And then all of a sudden they go, I'm gonna buy a Mox Diamond. And then they buy a Mox Diamond. You know what I mean? So like it's one of those things where if I don't think that they should limit that stuff because you're gonna see less people playing the game overall. Which
Right.
to me, I just think that if they get completely out of Commander, they're probably going to quit playing casual too.
Yeah.
Honestly, because then they're just going to be jaded with Commander. They're going to be like, I'm done with Magic.
Yeah. I think, and I agree with you on pretty much all of that. I think the only hard part about it is that from their standpoint, and I guess this is how I feel about it. Like from their standpoint, they've already made the money on the card.
True.
As soon as the store paid for that product from the distributor they got it from, and we run it back to the actual main company, they're not making any money off of the secondary market.
Yeah.
Yeah, they want to say, oh, we don't pay attention to the secondary market, and then print Mana Crypt. And uh, did we forget about what was
Lost Caverns.
Lost Caverns? Was that printed last year?
No. That was 2 years ago.
Okay.
It's
See,
Pant Laza, right?
yeah. See,
Yeah.
what am I telling you? Like,
Okay,
I forget. It all runs together now. But like, they just happen to print these cards as special guest things. Like, yeah, they fucking pay attention to it.
Yeah.
You can't tell me that they don't.
Yeah.
But they're not making any money, which is why they're reprinting them as these special guest things so they can continue to make money. Whereas something like the Mox Diamond, it's on the reserve list. But they've already made their money off of it. So,
So then what do proxies hurt them then? Because the only person
because they look at it and they go, we could be making more money right now.
But how? You're buying it from the shop. People aren't pulling.
I don't know.
I'm not pulling a box to get me a fucking Mox Diamond.
I didn't say they were smart.
Yeah. Well, it's not even Wizards that's not smart. It's Hasbro. They're fucking stupid.
Well, yeah.
Every business they put their hands on, they destroy it. And then Wizards has just been the only profitable thing that they've had.
Right.
And then they literally last Christmas, they were like, oh yeah, Wizards, we appreciate you so much. Dungeons and Dragons, Magic the Gathering, y'all are fucking killing it. We're going to fire 1,000 of y'all for Christmas. Merry Christmas. Fucking douchebags, dude.
It just got a little too real.
Sorry.
It's okay.
Sorry.
That's another day.
To Hasbro or to Hasdon't? We'll just cut
To
that.
Hasbro.
We'll cut that. We're not getting sponsored by Hasbro.
But yeah,
If anything, Wizards may sponsor us because we're
know.
talking shit about Hasbro.
Maybe. Dude, we'll get Dragon Shield. We'll get TCG Player down. We'll get all of them.
Yeah.
We'll get Hobby Town.
I like the jib of these guys.
Yeah.
I say it how it is.
So, well, I guess.
Oh, the meta, right?
Yeah.
What do you think ends up? What in your opinion will be, I guess, like the top 5 decks that will like just stand well above everything else this year?
Fuck. I think that TNT and Blue Farm are almost interchangeable enough. I think TNT edges out just a little bit more. Maybe I'm biased because that's the one I'm playing right now, but I think that just green is positioned a little bit better in the format than red is. And following that in third, I would probably say Kennen, maybe. I think Kennen. Then Rogsai.
Okay.
I would probably put Kennen above Rogsai because of what we talked about earlier with consistency. I think that Rogsai, as fast as it is, you still have to really know what you're doing, and you have to do what you got to do to make it consistent.
Mhm.
And like, so I mean, if you dump your hand and then you're all out of gas, you're just kind of sitting there,
Mhm.
But with Kennen, you can kind of dump your hand and then you can just keep going if you make it past, turn 2, really.
Mhm.
So those are at least my top 4. Now my 5th one, that's where it gets a little tricky. I wouldn't even put Sisse there right now, and that's the unfortunate thing for me.
Really?
Yeah, and that may change. I think again, it's all going to come back to what gets printed.
Mhm.
Um, I think that if I had to go with my gut feeling,
Mhm.
I might almost say Tivit.
Tivit?
Yeah, I think that Esper, in of its own, is too strong
It's
right
a
now.
it's Esper Winter, baby.
Huh?
It's so good. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what Callahan and Ian are saying. It's Esper
Like
Winter.
I think that, and I haven't even watched their stuff of what they've really talked about. I've
Yeah.
seen some of the power ranking things here recently, but
Yeah.
not too much. But it Tivit, maybe even Atraxa. I don't know, but I think that with the top 2 being Esper Shell plus a color, I think the 5th one is probably going to be an Esper Commander, and I feel like the best at the moment is Tivit.
Mm.
So I think that's where I stand right now. So I'm going to say TNT, Blue Farm, Kennen, Rogsai, Tivit. I think that's going to be my top 5.
Okay. Really? So you think by the end of the year that'll be the top 5?
I think so.
Okay. I actually agree with the Tim. I agree with like TNT and TNK. The only reason that I agree with it that way is because I think more people have switched to TNT and now they're just on that list again because they got burnt out of TNK. But I think Tim Necrom is better.
Okay.
This is just my own opinion. But I think Tim Necrom is better than Tim Thras. But I think more people right now are playing Tim Thras. So I think you're just going to see it win more tournaments. Right. And then honestly, I really don't like Rogsai that much. I think it is not that good. I think it has legs and it's good, but it's just gotten hurt really bad with the bans. Like it does slow you down when you don't have access to all this extra mana, especially like colored mana. But I still think the deck's fine. But honestly, man, I think those 2 are solid. I think that I agree with you. Kennen's pretty good. It's positioned really, really well. Yeah. But the weird thing about Kennen is that it just doesn't have a lot of. It has a couple good pilots, and then a lot of like pilots. But the good pilots carry all the weight. It'll be like, oh, Kennen had 2 tournament wins, and then that was it.
Right.
Like no top 16. But no, I definitely think it's gotten better.
Yeah.
Also, it really just depends on what all comes out this year. But yeah, I would say TNT, TNK, probably Kennen. I actually think that I'm gonna say, man, they're dedicated pilots. I'll actually say
You said Magda.
No.
You say that and it worried me for a second.
No. I really do think Sisse is going to have the comeback this year. I think she'll bounce back.
Okay.
I think Sisse probably at 4. And then I really do like Tivit, but I'll probably put Rogsai at 5, I think that people just won't, they're not going to get off that list.
I don't think so either.
Yeah.
I think this is an interesting, kind of going back to the ban, unban things. Which would you rather see banned as a commander? Rograk or Timna?
Well, I really hate Rograk, but man, that's such an interesting question.
Because we just listed 2 Timna decks as first and second.
Well, that doesn't even take into account all the other really good Timna decks.
Blood Pod.
Yeah.
And we're like even just like Timna Malcolm,
well,
which
Timna
is still within Esper.
Timna Jessica.
Which
kind of died, but
yeah. But Timna allows a lot of, I think, versatility in a way in the format. because you have all these different decks you can play.
Mhm.
Rogue only has like what, 2 decks? Rog Sai and Rog Thras. I think those are the main two.
Yeah.
Can't think of anything else.
Wasn't there like Rog Tevish? That's not great now, but
No.
was there not? Wasn't there like a
I
Rog?
don't. Yeah, there was, but I
Oh,
think a
okay.
lot of people switched over to
Yeah, that's
other mixes.
awful.
But like,
I don't think I can think
I
of
don't
anything.
know, because it's like,
Yeah, I think Timna probably would be the better one to. Yeah, you're gonna see. In my opinion, you see a lot more. Well, man, that's so tricky because when you think about the the top deck invitational, Blue Farm won that, so a Timna deck won.
yeah,
But all of like the top decks were Rogsai. For some reason, it was like Rogsai's time to go. Do you think that if Timna just disappears, like Rogs all of a sudden, like
yeah. But so the reason I asked that question is because there's 2 different ways of looking at it. If Timna goes, you have a lot of decks that go,
yeah,
and a lot of decks that no longer have access to Dimir specifically, because you're taking out the black. So like Timna Crom, you take out the black, and what do you run in Timna's place that still gives you the access for the Thassa's combo?
Ravos. That's
Huh?
it, Ravos.
So yeah, or you
That's
play
awful.
Thrasios Vile Smasher, which I think could be a potential deck, but not enough people play it right now.
That's fine.
Rograk, on the other hand, he's not really seen in the command zone, like outside of Rograk and Rogsai. You know, Rog Thras is a thing, but he's not making a big impact as far as the partner pairings. But where he is the fact that he enables so much of the free stuff.
Well,
And that is where it's like, would you ban something that enables more of the free stuff, like the Flare of Duplication, which is a card we forgot about, and like all like the ritual, like Calling the Weak and like all that stuff, or would you take out the commander that allows all of these other decks to thrive? Just to shake up the format?
Did we get Molten Duplication this year, or the one that's like the?
We did. That was in Outlaws.
God, we're fucking stupid.
I know. It's
all
okay.
good. But yeah. No, okay, this is the thing though. I think that Rograk is a more pivotal piece, or he's a more vital part to Rog decks. Like he is being used a lot more. In Timna decks, she is literally just there for the colors, because the only other good Azori, or not Azori, is it
Orzhov?
No, Orzhov. Jesus Christ, yeah. The only other Orzhov commander is Ravos, and he's not good. He's literally just on your upkeep, you get to get a creature out of your graveyard. Like that's it.
Yeah,
That's awful. And he's 5 mana, so it's like 3 and then Orzhov. So he's
not good.
No, he's not good at all. Yeah, the only reason I know that is because I collect all the partners, but it's not good. And so like I think that she offers just the colors, whereas Rog is a vital piece of the deck. In my opinion, I would rather see decks rely on their commander a little more, even though I think that that's probably not smart in the sense of like you kind of just want the deck to do its thing, and then the commander's there as like an option. I kind of like the fact that Rog decks found a way to be like, oh, we're gonna really utilize Rograk. Like you're gonna use Hullbreaker Horror, and you're gonna do crazy stuff with Rog, or you're gonna, stuff like that, or you're gonna again use them as like mana. I kind of like that more than just having Timna there to be Timna, and then your last ditch effort is like, I'll just draw cards.
Right.
So yeah, I would rather probably see Timna go. I'd rather see them both go, but I'd rather see partners go.
Maybe that's a thing that happens.
Well,
we don't know.
Do you think how many of even of the top decks that we listed, like 3 of them, probably like multiple of the top 10 decks are all just partner good pile decks? Like, I don't know. I would kind of like to see the bounce backs of like Kinriths and Nagilas and stuff like that. I think that would be kind of neat.
Yeah.
I mean, Sisay.
I agree.
Kinnan.
I think Sisay would kill it at that point.
Oh yeah.
I think that would be the definitive like best 5-color deck if partners were gone.
That, or they'll end up saying the opposite. They'll be like, Oh, they love partners. Look how much they're playing them, and then they'll print a fucking 3-color partner.
Maybe. I don't know.
Imagine if we got 3-color partners.
I mean, I might be okay with it.
You could play like Timna, Teamer.
Oh, dude, I would if it was like a Sans Red one, if it was like just an Esper one, dude, I'm doing that with Rograk. I'm gonna play Blue Farm with that and Rograk. Like,
that's a good point.
Would you not? Like, would you not at that point? You just forego the Timna Crom and then build basically Rogsai, but with white?
It would just depend on what the card does, I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it makes sense. I mean, you play Rograk with Silas, and Silas doesn't do shit.
Yeah. So I don't know.
So how you want to close this out?
That's a good question. We never even closed out the other. Really?
No, we did.
Did we?
Yeah, I think we took the time to close it out.
So I guess like overall with the stuff we talked about, like as far as our takes from 24 leading into this new year, what we think Wizards is going to go off with, and like the bans, where the meta is, like, you know, I think it's still obviously still too soon, like to really judge where it's at. Plus, we all have all these other sets that are about to come out. We haven't even covered that today. We'll get that next time.
Yeah.
But like, I don't know. After what we have talked about so far, where are you at on it?
I think we should go play some cEDH.
I think that's probably what we're about to do, like right after this.
Yeah. I think that is, in my opinion, I think that I personally am really excited to play cEDH. And I will say I got a little bit upset whenever the bans happened. It did not really hurt me in any way. Like, again, I'm just strict Esper player. I play Zur. It doesn't really affect me too much. But I came from Yu-Gi-Oh! Where we got bans all the time. I mean, 4 times a year we were getting bans. If a deck became tier 0 and it was winning everything, emergency ban. I mean, they would pull it out from underneath you. You'd drop $1,000 and then 2 weeks later, boom, your deck's gone. Like, it's just part of it. You know, I don't necessarily love it, but I'm actually kind of happy with seeing things rotate and having to move around. It makes you start to have to problem solve quite a bit, and I just enjoy it. So I think that things are in a good place. I definitely understand why people are upset and why they're feeling what they're feeling, but I think that in the long run, things will eventually come full circle. If enough stuff does kind of get weeded out of the format, then your decks that you used to love to play that were kind of pet decks, they'll eventually kind of find their way back into it. You'll have your core volds kind of make their way back. You'll have your whatever other deck make its way back. You know, like, it just takes a little bit of time to let things come full circle. You know, if everybody's going Necropotent's plan, you may see Yasharn come back and make a comeback. You never know. So I mean, you just never know. But I'm just excited to play some cEDH. That's my biggest thing.
All right. Yeah, same. Like, I think that just trying to get as many games in as we can, and just for me, I'm just gonna roll with whatever.
Oh yeah.
You know, because that's all that we can really expect, I think, at this point.
Yeah.
So we'll just see what happens.
Yep. Go play some cEDH.